Sick. All right, you guys. I think we can, we're going to get reprimanded already by Mr. Oster for starting 7 minutes late. So we're in big trouble. But yeah, we thank you guys all for showing up and partying. I know some of you guys have to leave early. Blake, he said he had to leave early. I don't know, is that early? But so I'm just going to throw this QR code up really quick. If you guys want to scan it, that'll be a link to kind of all the resources that I'm going to share at the end. It's not a Rickroll. That would be crazy. So you're going to see a couple resources pop up there. Those are basically my favorites as far as learning color. If you guys want to pop in really quick and anyone just popcorn around, like what's your knowledge with color? Are we starting from scratch? Are we starting, with a little base knowledge? I know some of you guys do awesome work with awesome color already. So just what are you guys here to learn? Yeah. Start from scratch. Cool.
I want to be better. I just want to be like Ron.
That's what we're doing. Yeah, this is basically a Learn Like Me class. Okay, cool. Well, we'll dive in. The structure for how today's going to go is we're just going to go over some high-level theory and ideas behind color and why you would do things a certain way. And then we'll do a little technical demonstration and kind of dive right in. Some of the things you see around are, this is a monitor that's calibrated for color. Right now, it's not set up to be calibrated in this room, but I think that's one thing that a lot of people look at color of, like, you can do it on a laptop, or you can get, like, this is a mini color panel, and it'll allow me, you guys can see when we dive in, to really just slightly adjust and fine-tune color. But yeah, a bit of who I am. My name is Brian Durkee. I met some of you guys the other day. I run a color house here in Salt Lake called Palanoia Post, and we specialize in commercial, a little bit of narrative, but mostly commercial and documentary filmmaking. And I got into color. I really initially got into it because I was a bad cinematographer and I wanted to make my stuff look better. But it's kind of evolved into learning how to use it as a storytelling piece and really dial in, what emotions you're trying to get through in a piece. So today's course, we're mostly going to go over documentary color, which is a lot different than commercial filmmaking color, in my opinion. Commercial is a lot more, you get into the nitty gritty and make certain things pop and certain things highlight for a product, where this is just going to be more like an overview of how do you make something look good for what it needs to be in a piece, right? So any questions so far? Awesome. Well, we'll dive into some of the things right off the bat here. So there's a big notion in color grading when people come into, they come into my studio and they say, hey, I have this project that I want to color grade. And they hand it off to me, and I get all the pieces in, and it's a bunch of footage that looks like it's shot, over a course of multiple months. It's shot by different people. It's exposed differently. It's on different cameras. And so I just want to start off by signifying the difference between color correction and color grading. And so basically think about them as two separate buckets. For the most part, you always want to do both, but color correction at its base form is taking all the footage that comes in when you shoot your project and making it all standardized. So, you shoot on a Red and a Sony in their log picture profile, they're going to look different. So standardizing that into a color space where then you can, take it to a grading point. A lot of that is included where, exposure adjustments, white balance adjustments. It's basically, think about it as, this is going to be a weird example, but if you have like a sports car, right? And you want to throw NOS on it, you want to throw a spoiler, you want to throw some cool wheels on it, you throw all that stuff on, but if the core engine in the car is broken before you add on this other stuff, it's going to fall apart when you apply that same kit to a different car. Versus if you get 5 Toyota Camrys that have all been normalized to the same Toyota Camry, then you can soup them all up with the same sauce, and it's going to look good. And so I think that's a big mistake that I see a lot of people doing right off the bat is they'll get footage, they'll be excited to start grading it, and they'll just try and throw all this like juice on it. They'll throw their favorite LUT on it. They'll throw their favorite, film emulation on it, but they don't get it and normalize it to a base point where everything is going to play nice under that. And so that's color correction. That's the world of color correction. I always say if you had like 5 hours to color a project, don't worry about grading. Just get it color corrected, especially in documentary, because for the most part, people get so immersed in the story. If a shot looks weird and it's out of place, that's going to take you out of the story, right? But if you get everything normalized to looking in a basic kind of Rec 709 image, which if you know Rec 709, it's basically just like, standard contrast, saturation adjustments. It's a technical term for what displays can display. You really don't want someone to be taken out because a shot looks different. And so color correction is so important. And in documentary, it's even more important because you're in all these lighting conditions where you don't have control over it. A lot of the time in narrative filmmaking and commercial filmmaking, you have these film crews completely working together to make sure every image looks the same so that when it goes into post, they can just start with the grading, basically. There's a little bit less correction to do. So if you're working with a good DP, hopefully you have less color correction to do, but it's still something you always want to do when you're entering a project. Color grading is probably kind of what you guys are thinking about this class is going to dive into more so, which we will. And it's getting a look for your project. It's getting, emotions to come out in a certain way. It's getting people to look at an image and almost immerse themselves in it and have it build up to whatever the message of the story is that it's trying to convey. So yeah, any questions on the two differences there? Sick. Are most of you?
In terms of the color correction in general, when you're using Rec 709, is there the standard LUTs that you can apply, create when you're utilizing certain cameras? Like when you're doing working with the ERT person, you have what your end proxy files or those are going to be. Let's say you're shooting, ideally you would want to be shooting all on the same camera, but let's say you're shooting on multiple different things, and you're going to be combining them, from different locations.
Yeah.
So if you can set those standards with Direct 709 on each camera, and then do the output for the proxies, so that you can streamline at least the color correction.
Yeah, 100%. And we'll actually dive into that at the end. I'll pull up a project and show you how to kind of normalize different clips.
That's an area that I've been running into specifically because, anyway, I'll look forward to that at the end.
Yeah.
Hurdle that I'm wondering how to solve.
For sure, and that's the big pro of color grading. You don't stress on shooting on different cameras nearly as much if you have an understanding. Yes, sir.
I'm just curious if you use the same tools and techniques to do both things, or just accomplishing something different.
Yeah. So I personally do. I do all of my color grading in DaVinci Resolve. Some people choose to use different tools and techniques for different reasons. But it's pretty easy to do it all in one program these days, for sure. And it's kind of a thing where a lot of the time it gets mushed up and people just do them both at the same time when they bring it in, especially if you're not a colorist or working with a colorist and you bring it in yourself. You'll kind of get ahead of yourself and get excited to push a look. And I think that's why I said visualize them as two separate buckets. You got to fill this bucket before you even think about putting stuff in this bucket. Otherwise, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot later. So yeah, same tool, and we'll dive into kind of normalizing cameras, so that won't be a headache there. But yeah, let's dive in really quick to some tools of the trade, which what we were going to go into. So if you raise your hand if you mostly edit in Premiere.
Edit or color?
Edit. Yeah. Final Cut.
Bold,
Sick. Avid 2. That's a big dog. And then DaVinci. Sick. Okay, so it's a good loss. And then for the guys who edit in Premiere, probably coloring in DaVinci. Ever do color in Premiere too?
But DaVinci.
Sick. Yeah. Those are probably the three that we're going to cover today. Final Cut, I don't touch too much personally. It's pretty similar to Premiere as far as its capabilities. In some ways, it's even better. But DaVinci is kind of becoming the industry standard for mid to almost. It's used a lot more professionally now. There's a couple that are used professionally that we won't touch on today. But DaVinci is great because they have a free version out there, so you can go home and download it today, start messing around. And it's also paid version is one-time buy. So it's $300. If you buy a DaVinci product, it comes with a license. So it's a pretty easy system to get into, and it's becoming more and more common these past couple years. So a lot of people are afraid of learning it. It is scary. It does take a little bit of time to learn, but once you do it, it's just another tool under your belt where you don't have to pay a colorist like me stupid amounts of money to color your projects, and you can do it yourself. So that's some of the tools of the trade there. Obviously, I touched a little bit on calibrated monitors and using control panels. You'll see people have big ones. You'll see people have small ones. Really, the thing that I want to share with you guys most, and I'll show you a little bit later, is just making sure that you're looking at your project on multiple screens. So ideally, you have a calibrated monitor that is in the right area, but for the most part, Macs these days, the new MacBook laptop screens are pretty good. One tip that is really, really nice is, I'll show you in DaVinci later how to do it, but you can actually send a wireless clean feed to your phone over Wi-Fi now, and it is the best thing ever for checking how your images look, because realistically, 99% of people on the phone watching, and so it's really nice to be able to okay, that color pops on an iPhone. For the most part, our iPhones look the same, right? They're all made in the same spot, so that's a couple tools of the trade. Any questions before we dive a little bit into color theory?
In your opinion,
Yeah.
like I feel like I'm so dialed in my editing process in Premiere.
Mm-hmm.
Like, would you just recommend like just stop using Premiere and fully switch to DaVinci and then just have everything in one spot?
He's nodding his head big yes, and I would say up to you, because even that I've done 3 years in DaVinci, I look at stuff that I edited in Premiere 5 years ago and I'm like, damn, I was really good at editing in Premiere. And so if that's the better tool for editing, I think keep that and then still just, round trip to DaVinci if you really want that extra touch. It's pretty easy to round trip these days, especially with how you can export things super quick. It's not as seamless as just editing all DaVinci, but I think it's a question you got to ask yourself of like, am I happy with my current edit session? How much realistically am I actually having to do in color? Because you can do a lot in Premiere, just not quite as much.
Get like 85% in the last 50.
Bingo.
Sometimes I don't even do it. Sometimes I just let it be.
100%. I feel like Premiere, for me personally, I'm way better at doing like quick, fast commercial edits in it. Like, make a swoop and a whoosh and add a directional blur and cha-cha-cha. But as far as like long form narrative and especially documentary, I love editing documentary in DaVinci just because it's so seamless the way the program works and everything. But I'm sure if you guys attended Jack's editing workshops, he's a master at Premiere and he's got no reason to switch. So it's whatever tool is best for you, for sure. But yeah, so diving a little bit, I'm going to breeze over this because a lot of this stuff is basic. We learned it in kindergarten. You have a color wheel up there and basically diving into complementary colors, right? So everyone knows the blue and orange look, the blue and teal and blue. You can see why that exists. You literally have teal on the other opposite end of the color spectrum. Same with over here, you would have a purple and green look. Sometimes a little bit less common, yellow and purple. But that's a good rule of thumb of complementary colors and how people can pick color schemes for their projects. So blue and teal is a default you see a lot. This is by no means like something that you have to follow when you're grading your projects, but just something to think about how to utilize colors that work together rather than maybe going like a yellow and a blue. But that does work together too. So, there's a reason why they exist, but there's also the ability to break them is pretty important as well. But yeah, so diving into basically there's primary color correction and secondary color correction. So I'm calling it color correction. I should be calling it color grading. Here we're past the color correction phase. So let's say you've normalized all your footage into one timeline where everything works together. You're looking at primary and secondary. Primary, those are the broad strokes where you're coming in, you're building a look for it, you're kind of moving, your highlights a little bit yellow, your shadows a little bit blue, maybe turning up a little bit of contrast in there and some detail or sharpening. And that gets a big look all the way across the project. Then secondary color correction is a term you'll hear afterwards, and that's when you're getting more in the weeds. So like, okay, we watched the whole film, damn, we want the grass in the background to be orange because we want it to feel like autumn. Okay, you use a qualifier, turn it orange. And so what I'm trying to get across here is just some language that you can use when you're talking to a colorist. If they're like, okay, what secondaries do we want to put on this? It's typically meaning the more specific things, like make the red in the Coca-Cola can pop. Put a circle around that guy's face and bring up the brightness so you can see into his eyes a little bit better. And again, that's not something you do as much in documentary. It's really heavily used in commercial world. You'll see some docs that look like narratives where they use it heavily, but in a lot of the stuff that we've been showing this weekend and a lot of outdoor stuff specifically, since you're not getting as nitty-gritty with the lighting out in the world, a lot of the times the directors will kind of embrace it as it comes and make it a little bit more natural when it comes into the color process. And so you're kind of diving into 2 levels of color correction there. It's another bucket inside that secondary bucket of color grading. And if you have time to do just one, you're just going to do primary color correction. And that can be as simple as a little LUT that you download from a favorite YouTuber or something. You got options there. But I want to get to the technical stuff because that's what I really get stoked on. But I just wanted to touch on a couple quick documentaries that you guys might have seen or heard of before and how they used color palettes to get across their message in a different way or subtly impact your psyche. The thing I want to say coming up here, I wanted you to take away, it doesn't get that deep. Like it's as complicated as you want to make it. A lot of people will be like, the blue signals this and it makes it, feel this way. That's artist talk, right? I'm more of a realist talk of like, if it looks cool and it fits the story, let's do it. I think you have to kind of be honest with yourself of why you're doing color choices in your pieces. But at the end of the day, what I really want to get across here is just intentionality. When you're coming in with color, just be intentional with whatever you're doing here. rather than just kind of slapping a look on and moving past it. Sometimes it helps to just take a day after the edit or a week after the edit is done and say, okay, how do I want this piece to look? How do I want it to feel? And then iterate on that process and really be honest with yourself. But let's dive into a couple examples. So start with this one. I'm sure everyone in this room knows Free Solo. It's the Oppenheimer of documentaries. Everybody loves it. Everybody references it. But I'll just play the trailer in the background. And some things that you'll notice in the trailer, and I know this is super sharp. I looked at it really quick. But the contrast and the sharpness in a lot of these frames is really turned up, and it really makes things pop. You can see in here, he's kind of warm, put a pin in that. But so it makes the rock pop. It makes it feel sharp. It makes it feel almost dangerous when he's on the rock of like, okay, any cut of the hand could go. It's high contrast, very naturalistic. The greens are green, the oranges are orange here. And then it kind of contrasts that real world of, not trying to push too much of a narrative while he's on the wall, just staying very neutral. When he's in his van, like at the beginning, it's kind of warm, it's intimate. They bring down the tones. They want it to feel soft, make him feel vulnerable. And so, again, not going too deep, those are two ways that they use color in this documentary. Versus you can dive into this one, which is called 13th. And it's more of a political and activist documentary that, I don't want to give the whole synopsis here, but it cuts a lot with these news clips of black and white. And so you can see in the coloring process, it's very neutral. Like this room, they can shoot it like this. Let me see if I can find it again. You saw how white that back of that room was? So typically when they're going between like this and news clips, they'll use a very neutral color palette and just make it contrast with newspaper articles. Versus, I think I skipped over another one here. When they're talking about like hope and other areas of like change, it's more near the end, they'll kind of switch to a warmer color palette. Again, this is you working with the DP, the director, and how they choose to shoot it. But, it's stuff you can enhance in post. So again, not going too deep, that's that. One last thing I want to show you is if you ever do reenactments in your shoots, this is another one, The Social Dilemma, where the reenactments, I'm sure you've seen this a lot in Netflix ones, they grade it almost to look like a movie. They shoot it to look like a movie, but then they grade it to feel not documentary-esque. Yet when they go back to the interviews, it kind of takes you out. You know you're out of a reenactment. Like, look at this. That's an interview versus that. So again, it's a conversation to have. The director, the DP can come in and say, hey, we shot this scene like this. Can you enhance it? And those are just some uses of why you would do certain color in certain areas. Yeah. Any thoughts, questions following up on how to utilize it in your pieces? Sick.
It's a lot more complicated than yellow and green.
It is. No, it totally is. And the hard part about the yellow and green and the blue and teal and everything, you don't want to fight whatever comes to you. So if the footage comes to you and, even if it is a documentary, if they lit it with very cool lighting, you don't necessarily want to push it warm. Unless the director's like, we fucked up, we want to push it warm. Then just keep it cool and lean into that world. So it's kind of fun when you get footage that has the flexibility to be pushed around, which is a lot of outdoor stuff, especially because there's so many colors and there's such a high contrast ratio in the image. But a lot of the times you just kind of take what you got and just zhuzh it up a little bit. Yeah, so that's that. Let's see what we got next. I know I'm blowing by this. I'm a really fast talker, so if you guys want to slow down or revisit anything, just holler out, please. But
Where's your accent from?
So I was born in San Diego.
Diego?
Yes.
Doesn't sound like San Diego.
Yeah. That's the answer, though. Yeah. I grew up in the U.S. my whole life. Yeah.
There's got to be some weird Canadian guy in your life somewhere that was early on in the language.
Well, a year ago, I met a really, really interesting Canadian guy.
Yeah.
It's totally unrelated to that, but yeah, you said that and I had a spark in my head. I was like,
early regions of your brain when you hear certain languages when you're growing up, it's like before the age of 5, you can actually sometimes pick up accents too.
maybe, okay, so there's a Canadian man visiting my house.
Maybe, I'm just saying like.
Yeah, just diving into this next thing, I want to just talk about choosing a color palette for your film. A lot of it is going to be done on the day. It's going to be done how you shoot it. It's going to be done how you set your white balance in camera. Are a lot of you guys in this room shooters, directors, editors? Do you guys handle cameras often? Sick, okay. So understanding the basic of like how you can turn your white balance, make it blue, make it orange, all that other stuff. It's definitely something where you can direct how it's going to be in color. But I always say if you don't know which way you want to take the story, then just shoot it neutral. Because you can push it with cameras these days. Like most Sonys, you can push a couple thousand Kelvin in post and get whatever look you want. And if you're shooting on a red or something, like the world's your oyster. You can do a whole lot of stuff, especially if you're not adding lights into the scene, because then you're just capturing raw data of a scene and there's not much you could do in camera anyways that's different. So I think when you're looking at a documentary, I have a lot of documentaries come to me that are already made. And so I know the subject matter. I have talks with the directors and the DPs of how they want it to look, how they want it to feel. But I think from a lot of your perspective is you'll look at your piece, you need to look at it with an eye. You're going to have an idea of the message as you're editing the piece, but then wait till it's done before you start doing a lot of color. You can add a little bit in there, but don't get married to any looks, because once you put the whole piece together, you might look at it with a different eye and say, hey, the tone is a little bit different than the story we set out to film. How can we utilize color to emphasize that tone, to take away certain feelings? You know, it's a dramatic moment. Oh, okay, they said something comedy, but we don't want it to feel funny, so let's tone down saturation. You know, a weird example there, but I think just taking time and letting it breathe, that's kind of the beauty about some documentaries and some of these labors of love projects, is you're not on a one-day commercial shoot where, hey, we need this project tomorrow. You can really sit with it, and that's what you have on your side. That's your biggest asset. There will be times where I'll grade a project, and before I send it, it's a documentary. Again, this doesn't happen in commercial. I'll sit on it for like 5 days, won't look at it, come back to it, and look at it again, and be like, I completely messed this up. I gotta take another stab at this, because you'll see things that you didn't see when you're just staring at a computer for hours on end. So really utilize time to your advantage for understanding the subject matter, the visual language that you're trying to get across, and everything there. Let me take a breath there. Woo. And I think the thing that I'd follow up on that is seek feedback from friends. Show people test cuts, show people looks. A lot of the times you can even just export frames and stills and just like, hey, what do you think about this look? And a lot of the times people who aren't involved in filmmaking will have the best feedback, because they're not married to the technicality of the image. They'll just be like, why are the shadows so blue? Why is it so contrasty? I can't see into the shadow side of the face. And like a lot of the times we just want to push things and put our look on it. But I think getting it in front of an audience who isn't as in love with the process can sometimes give you really good feedback. Again, then sometimes you have people who don't know what they're talking about, and they'll be like, no, it should be warmer. And it's like, no, you want it to be cold. So everything with a grain of salt. But yeah, those are some ideas of how to approach a project with it. And the last thing I would say is references. Whether you're a director, DP, or just getting it as a colorist, pulling references either from your team or from yourself. There's a great website here I put on called FrameSet. This is mostly commercial work, but it's pretty free. Like I think you can get 10 searches a day without paying for it. So this is a super easy place to just dive in and pull references. I bet Blake has some shots on here. That looks like a shot that Blake did right there, actually. But there's another one called Shot Deck, which I'm sure you guys all heard of. That's $10 a month. So again, it's like, if you're not using it all the time, look at it. Is it worth it for you? You have FrameSet, but Shot Deck will typically have more documentaries and more narrative films, which can tend to have a look that aligns a little bit more. There's a bunch of these out here. Those are just two that I'd recommend looking at right off the bat. But yeah, picking references.
FrameSet and what?
Shot Deck, SHOTDECK. And yeah, so color palette, it needs to be intentional. Think about it, and then kind of stick with it, and really try and push everything into that world that you think belongs in that world. Don't stray away from your references. Your references are there because you like that and you like how they look, and really push to make your projects feel in a world where you feel like someone else could pull them as references, right? That's the kind of going back to what I said at the beginning of this, is the reason I got into color was I wanted to make my cinematography better without learning cinematography, which I ended up kind of trying to do both. But it's one of those magic things where if you have an amazingly shot piece and it gets a shit color job, it's going to look like crap in the end. Versus if you have, you know, a mid-shot piece, but it's got great colors at the end, like they can save it. They can do anything to it. They can make it look really, really good. Obviously, that's not ideal. You want good on both fronts, but it's one of those parts of the process that are so important, and it often gets overlooked because it's a little bit of a newer thing where we all have the capability to do it. You know, in the past decade, a lot of these programs and tools have been ability where all of us in this room could go home and do it ourselves, right? And so I think it's a way to make your stuff stand out now, because even now you see documentaries all the time that aren't getting the love that they deserve at the end, and it's kind of like it's a simple little piece to do at the end, whether you're doing it yourself or you bring on somebody to do it. But again, if you don't want it for your project, it's whatever's right for the project. There's some great documentaries that don't have any color and they just leave it in log and you watch it and you're like, oh, it's fine too. So everything with a grain of salt. But yeah, I guess we're rocking. We got about an hour left. I was gonna dive into some color grading examples here in the next little bit, but I want to make sure we touch on everything because I know we just blasted over like a whole bunch of subjects. So in the live grading session, we'll go a little bit over like fine-tuning, shot matching. I'll pause. I'll talk about LUTs and considerations when you get footage in and all that other stuff. But before we go into that, I just want to open the floor to see what people have, what people's thoughts are of anything, really.
One thing you said was sending your project to someone who's not a filmmaker or someone who's not in your community, family members. I think that's a really important step because as filmmakers, we tend sometimes to lean towards making a story that we think other filmmakers are gonna like, and not what 99% of the rest of the people that are gonna be watching the film are gonna like. And I want to reinforce that a lot. Like one thing I've been considering through my entire summer, like this whole busy season, was like making stuff that like my family would watch, or that like makes sense that for other people to like digest.
Mm-hmm.
Which is like a really important step, especially with like your coloring and like your in the process of your pieces.
For sure. And taking that same idea and applying it to the end, to the color too, is kind of what you were getting at. Is there was this Netflix documentary that I was watching with my girlfriend like a year ago, and it was like a true crime New York scene, and I thought it was so rad the way they pushed the blues and made it contrasty and bright and all this other stuff. And it, like, from a technical perspective, it was really well done. And the whole time she was like, I don't like how they look. And again, that's one person's opinion, but it's like, it felt like that was a lot of like filmmakers making it for the filmmakers, that piece, which I appreciate. But yeah, thinking about how you want your documentary to be received. Do you want it to just go in, you know, not that it's a bad thing, but just go in film festivals and have other filmmakers see it? Or do you want to have it in film festivals and have other people watch it who aren't filmmakers and be like kind of how Free Solo just took off? Obviously, that's a prime example, but people who don't care about filmmaking, people who don't care about rock climbing, like that just transcends so many different genres and buckets where it's nice to be able to look at it and be like, all right, the color didn't detract from that.
Right.
And I think that's the dangerous thing about getting into color early, is a lot of times you can do stuff that'll actually detract from the piece. And so that's why, kind of going back to what we said, in documentary, a lot of the time, maybe the best option is to just put on a Rec 709 LUT and then just maybe turn down saturation a little bit or boost it a little bit. Like, you can't go wrong doing that. No one's going to look at it and be like, I didn't like that because the color, because that's what our eyes see, right? It can be used as a tool to enhance things, but it can also really, really easily be used as something that takes away and makes something look amateur and cheap. So that's a great point.
I have two questions real quick. One was when you've done all your whole thing, putting out there for people to see. I've had sometimes where you export it obviously on your screen, it looks sick on your Mac here, and it looks sick on your other monitor that you set up for yourself over here. Then you go home and watch it on the TV, or you go to someone else's place and they have like a big screen that they pull up as well, like gamma settings. Like I know, like generally always like 2.4, right? But I've also seen that more recently I've like kind of popped up more about like 2. Like when and where do you do you ever like punch it out into different
Yeah.
particular for the place?
That's a great question that you could spend like just an hour on right there for sure. Do you have DaVinci on your computer right now in front of you?
Yeah, but I don't have like any.
Oh, that's all good. I'll show you really quick of kind of what I would recommend doing. Just, is that an Apple laptop or a PC? Sick. So like this monitor, for example, you can switch it to 2.2, 2.4, and 2.4 is typically used more like cinema, movie theaters, sometimes TV. 2.2 is a lot used for like web and commercial stuff. Documentary releases, I figure 2.4 is going to be most of the time what people go. But again, that's if you're working in a color suite where you have things calibrated at 2.4 and you're able to view it on that, and then you're delivering it in 2.4 and the movie theater is playing it in 2.4, right? So
I just want to back.
yeah.
Before you said like movie theater, more general contours.
Yeah. It's more things that'll be showing in like theatrical releases or stuff like that. I'll have to remember. I can't remember if TV commercials are more 2.2 or 2.4, but or sorry, TV shows, but commercials and web stuff that's gonna be shown on iPhone, people will aim for 2.2. But the big thing is, if you're just grading on a Mac screen, here's the biggest tip that I've gotten asked this question so many times by people of like, why are my DaVinci exports looking like crap? So even though I'm grading on reference monitors, I actually set in color management. I don't know if you can see this up there, but you can see my output color space. I don't have it set to 2.2. 2.2 would be the right thing to set it to, right? Rec 709, here we go. Gamma 2.4, Gamma 2.2. I have mine set to Rec 709A. And the reason for that is Mac and Apple computers, they do a special thing with Gamma and how they display on a screen and everything. So if you set it to 2.2, when you export it and play it on QuickTime or YouTube, it'll actually look different. If you set it to Rec 709A, then what you're viewing in DaVinci is how it's going to play when you pull it up on YouTube on different things.
The actual res compression that they've done for the last decade is why that's set that way.
It'll tag it as like 111 versus 101. And so again, there's a PDF that I'll try and put in the resources that explains all this, and it'll basically lay it out, and then you don't ever have problems with it. But you're always going to run into issues of like, dang, you watch it on another screen and the blacks are way too crushed, or the highlights are way blowing out. That's just the name of the game. Not everything's going to be perfect. The whole reason why you want to use a calibrated screen and a standard is so that you can hit a target, and then things will move around that, but at least you're always hitting the same target every time.
So with that, would you probably put your target kind of like with the idea of having those buffers for variances then? Or you just want to set a mid scale is what you're saying. You don't want to do it. You want to set like a leap of like a stop gap on.
Well, and the thing is, the target that I'm saying of like you set a target, it's a standardized target. Everyone's going for the same target. You calibrate a screen to Rec 709, Gamma 2.4, Gamma 2.2.
Grade on their calibrated monitor.
Mhm.
And you're like, people are gonna watch this on all kinds of crazy stuff. So like, save yourself.
No.
Go for
Don't become a product of bad TV manufacturing. I'd say make it look good on that monitor. And again, I'll say that with a grain of salt. Make it look good on that monitor, and then what I said at the beginning, watch it on a couple different monitors. And if you see it on 3 monitors that aren't your calibrated monitor, if you have the luxury to do that, and you're like, it's way too dark on all of those, then go back and make that decision for yourself. Maybe I should bump it up a little bit. But that's why I recommend checking it on the phone, because the phone's like one of the most accurate, easy to use ones that most people are going to watch. And it's very easy to just be like, okay, those blacks are showing on the phone. All right, that's fine. Oh, those whites are way too high. Oh, that red pop is way too weird on the phone. Let's tone that back. So again, it's a standardized target for the most part. Most monitors will be calibrated to Gamma 2.2 or 2.4. But I think the problem that you're describing on the Mac is setting your output color space in your color management setting to Rec 709A, so all that stuff matches. Yeah, and we can chat more afterwards if you want to go on like that technical dive. But yeah, let's maybe hop into some examples. Any other burning questions before we dive right in?
I was just gonna say, you got it absolutely right on. Like I did one video, thought it looked awesome, went ahead and published it. 3-4 days later, I'm looking at it, that's back color spots.
Yeah.
But it took days, right? I wasn't thinking about. Well, I wasn't thinking about color at all. But my mind was only other stuff. I was doing.
100%. Yeah, it's so important to let it breathe, just with anything, with the edit, with sound design, with all that stuff. But I think colors, it's so often rushed at the end, where forcing yourself to take a step back and go do something else can really allow you to breathe, right? So yeah, let's dive into some real life examples. We'll be in DaVinci Resolve today, and we're just gonna go through some clips, and I'll show you a couple of different workflow options. Is there anything you guys want to touch on in specific as far as workflow? And feel free to just shout out questions or ideas as we go. Cool. Okay, sick. We'll definitely get some node structure, and there is a in the resources that I put, there's a video called Node Structure, I think, and that's like my go-to video for someone trying to understand like how to make a node structure that makes sense. Yes.
Quick question. Obviously, there's a million different ways to do it. Have you personally gone through a bunch of different ways of figuring out your system that works best for you? And like, are you going to talk about some of the other ways of doing it and explain how you got to yours?
Yeah, I can absolutely do that. We'll dive that in. And to a short and sweet answer to your question, oh yeah, it's
Go for it, finish that one.
perfect. It's an obsession with the art of color grading has allowed me to go and discover a bunch of different ways, talking to a bunch of different colorists and sharing information with, new coming colorists who are like, no, try this. So it's a culmination of all these different things. What I've really found doesn't work for me, and what I've really found works for me, or I guess it's probably harder for me to pinpoint right off the top of my head. But as stuff comes up, if there's a reason why you're like, Brian, why do you do it like that? Then I'll probably be able to like go back and be like, oh, because someone taught me this one time or something, right? For the most part, a lot of the workflow at a higher level is standardized. I think the scary part is before you get to that level, since it's a pretty deep dive in, it seems like you can do it a million ways. It seems like you'd approach a colorist project from a million different ways, and you still can, but there are ways that are better than others. So yes, just pop out questions and I'll pop out info.
Yeah, I guess like go along with that, like just seeing scenarios for when you do like the color management workflow versus like color space transform.
Mm-hmm.
Your input on that.
Yeah, for sure. Let's dive in and we'll pull some of that up. Before I just get off this page really quickly, so we had a frame set. This is Dehancer. You're gonna see me use that a little bit in this workflow. It's a paid plugin, but it's just one of the few film emulations I put on there, which allow you to basically, it's like a more complicated LUT. It allows you to do more different things than a LUT. Do any of you guys know what a LUT is? Sick.
Question: how does DaVinci compare to the new film look set up in DaVinci 19?
Yeah.
Have you compared the two?
I'm-
Do you have
You can definitely compare the two. On a project I just did, I actually used them both. I used the film look in DaVinci 19 as the timeline, like overarching look at the end, and then I used Dehancer for some of the juice underneath the hood. Again, that's the nerding out of color that I like, is like combining, mixing, and matching sauces. But for the most part, they can both give you great results, and one's free and one's not. So that's that. This guy is on the page. He is really good colorist, did Winning Time, which if you guys have ever seen that, that's just like an insane color job in so many ways. But he did this video, which is also in the resources. And this is, the whole thing's not in Italian. He's just an Italian dude. But this is probably the most, this is an hour 43 minutes. This class is an hour 43 minutes. This is a way better class than I'm about to give you now. So go home and watch this. It goes from basic to advanced and so smoothly. And it's by someone who is like proven to be doing amazing things. So would highly recommend that video. And then this is another guy who's on there. This is more of a simple node tree. So I'll dive in. You can ask questions about mine. Mine will be a little bit more complex for this one. But yeah, does everyone know what a node tree is? Does anybody not know what a node tree is? Better question. Sick. So again, we'll dive right in. I didn't pull a project that's like colored. I just pulled a bunch of raw footage from something from 2 years ago for this. So it's 2 different cameras. It's not a whole lot of different scenarios, but I just wanted to simplify things rather than trying to cover too many topics. So as far as bringing footage in, it's simple, drag and drop into the timeline, whether it's a finished product or raw footage. Typically, I wouldn't go in and just grade a bunch of raw footage, but I wouldn't recommend doing that. I do that all the time because I love testing it, but I wouldn't recommend doing that if you're trying to be efficient and live a life outside of a color grading studio. So this is all the raw footage coming in. I'll take a look at it and I'll say, okay, we have some, stuff that looks like it's lit over here. We have, some blue and orange colors. This is all coming in flat raw. And then we have an interview over here. And then we just have a bunch of different footage just from all over. And I've already organized these into 2 different layers here on the timeline, but this is all red footage and this is all Sony footage right over here. So pretty similar color profiles, but you'll see once we add on stuff, it's important to know what camera stuff was shot on. Sometimes what'll happen, if you're a colorist, you'll get a ProRes export of a big project and you'll kind of have to guess what cameras stuff is shot on. That's not a good place to be. Ideally, for efficiency, you want to know exactly what shots are coming from what camera. A good way of doing that is if you get a flat export sent out to you and you have no way of telling it, just ask them for the XML for the project. Don't even need the raw files, but then just overlay the XML over the timeline of what you have. And then you can at least look at the naming convention and say, okay, that's a Sony clip. That's a red clip. That's a thing we've had to do a couple times for projects when people are like, I don't know what this was shot on. We just got to figure it out. So
What happens if you're using archival footage when you early, and you have no clue, and you just
Yes, that's a great question.
stuff like at times where somebody even like there's found footage or something like we did that, you know.
Hmm. So let me go ahead and just drop this clip in the timeline right here, right? So this is, consider this archival footage, right? It's a birthday cake. You don't know what camera it shot on. You don't know how it was shot. You don't know what color profile. Is it already color graded? Is it not? In that sense, just use your eye. Because the reason why I want to stress knowing what camera stuff is shot on is because cameras, sensors, data, it's all math. It's all curves of how light hits the sensor, and you can translate that math to standardize it to all look the same, basically. So that's why it helps to know what cameras are shot on, because under the hood of DaVinci or whatever program you're in, you're able to use math to standardize everything. For this,
They look at the color wavelength.
the wavelengths more, I guess I'm meaning more like logarithmic curves to get it back into it. This doesn't have a curve that we know because it's just footage. So you just use eye. You just use judgment and get away from the maths and the technical. But so let's go in here. So here's the color page in DaVinci Resolve. Do you guys recognize this? Sick. So it's not super organized. Again, I'm just looking over here. You can see, can you guys all see that? Is it too small? Do you want me to make it bigger? Okay. Cool, cool. So everything kind of over on the right side here. Here's what I'll do. This is what I'll actually do when I'm grading a project is I'll highlight over there. And if I know it's a different camera, I'll make it a different color. So that when I'm in my timeline over here, everything with an orange dot, I can easily see that's Sony. Another way, I can click right here on these little texts under the clips, double click, and it shows me, okay, Sony footage, what version I'm on, and then the codec. And so that's another way of telling, like, if you don't know what camera it is, that's H.264, this is red. So I can go in here and say red. So to answer your question right off the bat, let's color correct everything. Let's get everything standardized first before we dive in. Let's say, so this footage is all shot really well, but let's just move some stuff around as if it wasn't. So I'm just gonna change the white balance on this guy and turn it down. So now that's a really underexposed image compared to what it was before. And then this shot right over here is up above and it's way too warm, right? And then this shot over here is shot well. So rather, and again, this is why I said you don't want to start with the grade, because if you start with the grade and then try and normalize shots underneath all this, so let me just put a quick timeline. We'll just put, again, going to what Kyle said is we'll just use the film look creator in DaVinci Resolve. And I'm just clicking on some things over here to make it happen, but color space override, we're in DaVinci wide gamut. And again, I'm not doing the proper workflow right here necessarily, but this is just to demonstrate. So now in the timeline, we have a look. We're going to turn the contrast up. We're going to turn bleach bypass up. We're going to turn richness up. Let's turn saturation. Very heavy look, probably an ugly look, but that's what we're doing for the sake of this, right? So just turning that look on and off. It's going to be on this shot too. So that's without the look. And this is the shot that was shot way overexposed, way too warm. Now that's with the look. So now, if I theoretically, this is bad practice, made my look first and then tried to normalize all my footage afterwards, it's going to be a lot harder to say, okay, I'm going to start using the panel 2 right now. So you won't see what I'm doing on the screen, but okay, let's lift this up to make it look normal. And let's just push it into a world here. And I'm actually just undoing what I did, but now let's try and make that look normal. Again, bad example necessarily because these are clips that I just adjusted, but like there's that and there's that. Like they're not the exact same, but they're, let's say, make that a little bit more close enough, right? But now I go over here and turn off my look. And we can see these two clips that were like the exact same are actually still pretty different. Oh my goodness, I just got away from them. Does anyone remember the clip number that we were on? How attention? So like even looking at the waveform over here, seeing the top, it's hiding over at 74 versus this one, it's hiding over at like 88, 85, 89. And again, that's a pretty rough example of me showing how it's bad, but a much better way of doing that would be don't create a look. We're gonna convert these to Rec 709 right off the bat. And so I know this is red footage. going over here, I can see it's red wide gamut log 310. So let's just take one of the red LUTs that are built into DaVinci Resolve. Again, I don't always love these. They're fine, but there's other ways to do it, which I'll show you in a second. Now we have a red LUT affecting everything on the timeline. So that's with Rec 709 off. That's with it on. That's with it. And now I'm resetting these, so these don't have any adjustments. That's with the Rec 709 on and off. So it's a lot easier to make these two shots match in Rec 709 than it is with the look on it. And that's kind of going back to what we said with the car analogy at the beginning of like making sure your cars are all standardized before you start trying to put a bunch of attachments and make them go faster, because then you're just running into problems under the hood that you can't foresee until then. So we're diving in here. That was one way of normalizing footage. I'm going to show you another way really quick. And so that was with the LUT. Do you guys all know how to do that in Premiere or DaVinci on your end? Okay, then let me pop into that. So do you use DaVinci ever?
Yeah, I use it.
Okay, got you. Okay, great. So if this footage is all red footage and I know that, if there's a LUT I like to work with, then I can use that. Or over here in this corner over here, you can see in this place that says LUTs in the upper left-hand corner, they have a bunch of pre-built LUTs into DaVinci. Some I've imported, but this one is just a red LUT. So I just drag that onto the node over here, and bam, it's converted into kind of what we were seeing on set through the camera.
So I most of my footage is GoPro.
Oh, see,
Doing
yeah.
stuff on fine.
Yeah.
They don't have any LUTs for GoPro, at least they did when I was working on this a year ago.
Uh-huh.
And I have no idea how to build that stuff. I don't know if that's outside the scope of what you wanted to cover. Is it?
No, that's great. Do you know if on your GoPro, do you shoot it in a like bright saturated setting, the standard profile, or like a log?
There was an option for RAW.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I had one. So anyway, there was an option for RAW.
Yeah.
And of course it looks crappy because there was
So here's what I would do is I would go on GoPro's website, download a GoPro conversion LUT, and then you can do that same exact thing. You just got to import it into here, which I can show you after class how to do that. And then you drop it on, it does the same exact thing as kind of what I just showed you. Yes. Yeah. If you just Google GoPro LUT, you'll get a whole gamut of different ones. Next thing, this is a little bit more advanced. So this goes back to your question of a color managed workflow versus a non-color managed workflow. I typically tend to work in non-color managed workflow because I like to have more control in every step of the process and know which footage is coming in where when I'm not shooting it. What the difference between those two things are, if color managed is on, it basically means that when you import a bunch of footage in DaVinci, if DaVinci can tell what camera it was shot on, it'll automatically convert that to Rec 709 for you. So it kind of saves this step of having to do all this. The problem that comes with that is, let's say you're shooting on a Sony FX6 or an FX3, and you're just shooting an MP4 wrapper. It doesn't have that information in the wrapper that DaVinci can decode as the current version stands. So you would still have to go and color manage that. So sometimes you'll have a bunch of red footage and FX6 footage and then RE footage, and you'll still have to do a little bit. So I just prefer to do it myself on my end. And that brings us to this right over here. So you go into Effects, type in Color Space Transform, and this is the maths. This is the fun stuff right here, because this is basically, it just asks you what's in here. Ignore all this other stuff over here for now. You can use it to your advantage, but it's a little bit complicated for what I'm trying to get at here, which is basically, if you can see over here, it says input color space and input gamma, and then output color space and output gamma. And so input color space, I can look at, let's go to this clip, for example. Oh, did it again. Let's go to this clip. It's an easy one to keep coming back to. I'm going to turn that off, and I'm on a clip level, so I'm not on the timeline anymore. I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to know, okay, this interview was shot on a red camera, and I can see in the bottom left-hand corner, not all things will have this, but I can see it was shot in red wide gamut RGB and log 310. So I'll go over here in that top one and select those two settings, red wide gamut 3 and log 3G10. And that'll be, and there's so many in here. So you can see, oh, whoa, that's way too dark, right? So then we go over here, output color space. I'm just going to type in Rec 709. You can kind of experiment here, see what works best for your delivery spec. And I'm going to press Rec 709 again. And now here's why I like that a little bit better. So here was the red LUT. And again, take it with a grain of salt of the color fidelity on the screen. That's with the red LUT supplied by Red or by DaVinci, whoever put that into the program. This is the color space transform. They look a little bit different, but the thing is over here, depending on how you're working, I can set this to gamma 2.2 if that's my output spec. I can set it to 2.4 if that's what I'm going for. And what's really nice about this color space transform built into DaVinci is if you're making a theatrical release and a web series, you could theoretically export in 2 different gamma settings at the end just with the click of a button. You don't have to go in your grade and then push up, push down, expose, do it all manually. It's done for you, it's automatic, and so that's that. So this is really all you need to do if you want a documentary to look like a documentary. Most documentaries don't have too much color grade. A lot of them are just shot with, a Rec 709 LUT on set, and then they put that in and then print it off at the end and let the story kind of take way. What we're here today is talk a little bit about how you can enhance your storytelling with the use of color. But again, this is not a bad way to go about it. As far as node structure, we'll start to slightly build out a node structure, and then we're going to leapfrog 4 years and go into a pretty complicated one at the end. But I'm going to name this node color space transform out, and that's because I'm just taking the footage in and then putting it out. Here's kind of a workflow tip right here. So this node right here is where a lot of stuff is happening. It's taking a lot of information and compressing it into a smaller color space. So you don't want to do adjustments after you make things look like Rec 709 typically. And that's the thing about archival footage. Sometimes it comes to you in Rec 709, so you can't push it around too much. If I try and now push this around and make a look on this, like it'll look fine right here, but it's just not as good of practice. You don't have as much latitude to work with. You can see how fast you can crush the blacks. Versus if I take it before this node right here and start to do my adjustments over there, you can tend to massage the image a little bit more. You're getting to use the full dynamic range of the camera. You're getting to really craft a look that's going to live under that final squeeze through the bottle, right? It's like if you have, this is a weird example, a bunch of icing, that's a weird example. You get the point. You get the point, right? Does anyone not get what I'm trying to say there, I guess? Perfect. So yeah, you always want to do your heavy lifting and your work before you transport it out into that color space, whether it's 2.2, 2.4, Rec 709, Wabba whatever color space you're going out into. Yes?
I saw you were referencing Aaron Mawson earlier, and he has that thing where you do the color space transform into wide gamut and do everything in there, and then from wide gamut to your out.
Yes.
Is that one of the other techniques?
You ready?
Here, you're only doing it at the end.
So that's a great question, and that's what we're going to dive in. I want to take you guys from like a pretty basic color grading thing where you could basically just name this look and then this. The problem with me doing this is if I copy this grade over here, and we're going to get to that question. If I copy this grade that I just did on the red footage and take it all the way over here and apply it to some Sony footage, and then change the color space out to Sony, I know this was S-Log3. The problem is it'll probably look similar. Again, this is more overexposed than that last shot, but it'll look similar, but you're doing something different to it under the hood. So the footage isn't quite normalized yet. You're adding the same ingredients, but you're cooking it on a different pan. And so you're going to get something that's similar, but the math on the log curve that's shot on the Sony is different. So that's what takes us into that next question is if you're working with a bunch of different cameras and you want to normalize a look across a project, that's where we can get into bringing everything into one color space. And a color space is basically just, if you think of, have you guys ever seen the diagrams of color space? So what it is here's an example of one, and ignore all the text on it. You don't necessarily need to see that, but it's basically, you have, let's say this is every color that's out there in the world or something like that. You have different sizes. Let me pull this one up actually. You have different sizes that different color spaces will contain. So you can see Rec 709 over here is one of these smaller triangles. And so that's what you're squeezing everything into at the end. So your phone is going to show you a Rec 709 image at the end. So you're squeezing all of these colors down into here, which is why you don't want to do your grading after there, because then you're messing with a smaller color space. What happens when you shoot in log, you're typically getting one of these bigger triangles. So you're getting a lot more footage coming in. So here's the answer to that question of what do you do if you have a bunch of different cameras that have different size triangles, but you want to apply the same look to all of those? Then you make all those triangles, you conform them to the same size triangle. And typically, you want to conform them to a bigger triangle than you shot them in, so that you're not losing any information that would have been contained in the camera. And one of the biggest triangles out there, and a really common one that we'll use today, there's a couple more out there, is DaVinci wide gamut. And that's a massive triangle that covers a whole lot of the color space, basically. So you know if you bring a camera and put it into DaVinci wide gamut, you're not losing anything there. You're just expanding the area of being able to push stuff around. And so then you create your look under DaVinci wide gamut, and then you squeeze it all back in together at the end. And what that allows is things to systematically change together and then conform together. Does that make sense right there? I know there wasn't any, I probably should have had some graphics to explain that, but yes.
Yeah, so when you pick a larger color space and you put everything into it, does it modify what's there? Like, does it stretch it to fill the color space, or it's just it just lives in a smaller area?
So that's a great question, because remember at the beginning I pulled this up over here, and there's two things. There's timeline color space and output color space. Output color space is the final thing we're squeezing into. Timeline color space is what's happening under the hood. So you want your timeline color space to be massive so that you have room to do whatever in it. But I know if you're talking GoPro footage and it's a tiny triangle that you're bringing in there, it's not going to bring it in there and then make it go super massive all of a sudden and then mess up the footage. All it's doing is it's saying, hey, we're putting this GoPro footage in this room, and if it wants to go in that corner, in that corner, in that corner, it can. The file might not be able to handle that kind of pushing around, but it just knows it has the space to do it if it wants to, right?
It just gives it room to work. It doesn't transform it into something when you put it there.
Exactly. Versus if you take, an Arri Alexa 35 and put that into a GoPro color space, it's going to be cramped. It's going to have nowhere to push. It's going to start breaking. Weird things are happening. So, like if I go in here and change timeline color space, I'm just going to do that really quick. It's not going to really change the image on the screen because that's all under the hood. It can change the image. There are some things that happen under, but for the most part, it's allowing you just a bigger area. So I set that to DaVinci wide gamut intermediate. So let's dive into normalizing footage. So you can see over here, I've kind of popped around already, but this is called, I'm going to turn off the effect so it doesn't get distracted. I just have this workshop string out grouped. And so over here, what I've done is I've taken, so this is a cool thing in DaVinci. You can go to a Lightbox and just see every clip in the timeline. Let me show you a really quick tip. Put a pin on what we're talking about. I have them set to hotkeys, but in DaVinci, you can set it to display all of the clips in the order of the story or in the order of timecode or whatever timecode's in camera, even if you're not running timecode. And what this is super helpful for is, let's say you have a project where you have an interview that's cut up over the course of 20 minutes. Rather than going through here and trying to find every interview piece, you can just, I'm going to do the hotkey, but it's under View, Timeline Thumbnail mode, and it's record mode or source mode. And if you go to source mode, it'll then in here show all, whether it's in here or back in over here at the bottom, it'll basically take your clips out of order from the timeline and put them all next to each other. And that's super, super helpful for making an interview look just consistent, or like you don't miss a clip. And then you look at the final export and you're like, damn, I forgot to put color on that portion of the interview. So that's a side note. That's a great thing that I even started using this year. I just discovered it this year, and it saves so much time and effort. We're going back to where we were. Does everyone remember where we were? Perfect. We were over here where I'm going to select all of this footage right over here that says red footage. And I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say add into new group. And I'm going to call this red footage, right? Then I'm going to go over here and take all of this stuff, which is Sony footage, and say add into new group. And I know you guys can't see the text on the screen. There's so many tutorials of how to do this out there, but I just want to show you this workflow so you can think about implementing it for long form projects or short form projects. This is Sony footage. I spelled footage wrong, but that's all right. So now we have two groups. And if I go up here and click on, okay, show me all the red footage, it's only going to show me red footage now. I'm going to delete this for a second. I'm going to delete. Okay, so now what happens is up here, these four little dots, you now have ability to do more than just edit a clip and edit a timeline look. You have the ability to edit the group look. And so this is where you start to make a look for your project. Is what I'll typically do, and here's my actual workflow of what I would do here, is to normalize all the footage, I'll put in a color space transform in the group area, and I will then, and I'm just gonna do this for the red footage, but you do the same thing for the Sony. I'm gonna turn it to Rec 709. There we go, Rec 709. And so now everything under my red footage area is being transformed into basically what we were seeing on set, because we were shooting with a Rec 709 LUT, right? So everything I see here, I can now go in and color correct. And I'll color correct on a clip level, which you can see over here, I have this node tree built out already. This is basically just using the same node tree for every single clip so that it, let me turn that off for a sec. Using the same node tree for every single clip so that when you're making adjustments clip to clip and you're clicking through clips, if you have exposure selected in your node tree, it's staying on exposure every single time. So then I can super quickly go through with the panel and, okay, that clip I need darker. Okay, this clip I need lighter. I know these are kind of odd clips. Okay, this clip we want to make it more blue and green. And then we want to copy that and take that over to, these 4 clips. And it allows you to just really fastly go through your timeline and normalize everything so that everything makes sense. Okay, it's too bright. Oh my gosh, I remember this scene. We want less contrast in this scene, so we just come in here and just turn down contrast a little bit. So that's color correction. That's bringing everything together, normalizing it. So now imagine we've done that to our whole timeline. Then we go over here and we build a look for it. But before we do that, I actually hopped around. We're going to move everything in a DaVinci wide gamut. And so that's actually what we would have done first, realistically, but I'm just going to move this over. So I have this done at a clip level. A lot of people will do it in the pre-clip level, so it affects everything in the group, but I like having the control over the clip. So I'm going to take a color space transform in, set it for here, and this is happening. This is the first thing I'm doing on this footage. Nothing else is being done before this. So just remember that, if anything, ignore all the complications. The first thing you do with your footage, even before correcting it sometimes, I'll bring it in here, and I'm going to convert it to that bigger color space. So I'm taking it from red wide gamut intermediate and red log 310, and you'll see it change for a sec, and I'm converting it to DaVinci intermediate. And so now what's happened with that is it's just transformed into that big color space. Now at the end here, I'm going to take it out of that. So I'm going to switch this, the input afterwards is DaVinci wide gamut and DaVinci intermediate, which is that big color space, and I'm going to squeeze that over to Rec 709. And now basically with that workflow, ignoring all this stuff, let me simplify this. Bam, bam. All that's happening between these two things right here is we're taking some footage in, and then we're putting it into that big color space, and then we're taking it out, and I'll name this color space transform out, and putting it into Rec 709. And so that goes back to our whole area of, okay, hey, we got to deliver for theaters. Just switch that to Gamma 2.4. It's ready for theaters. Oh, we got to deliver for web 2.2. And so that's a quick and easy way. Between these two things, imagine they're on the same page. That's where you do all the look DNA. So that's where I'm going to start and going in and creating a look for my image. The reason why they're on 2 separate pages is because everything that happens here will affect only this clip. Anything that happens on this page, right before I transform it back to Rec 709, is happening to every group in that clip. So let's say I go over here and I need to change adjustment on this clip and make it really bright. You can see it's not going to affect this clip. But let's say I go over here and I'm like, I want this project to look nice and blue. You can see how it's affecting everything. And so what you'll do here is, imagine this. We've normalized all of our clips. I'm not going to show it here, but we have everything and it's all adjusted exposure-wise. It all matches. Then we go over here and I'll start making my look before this guy right over here. And, a look can be as simple as throwing in a LUT. Let's just grab a random LUT and then turning it way down. This is not a good workflow here, but like there's a look. And now that's across my whole project. I can go over here. I can see how my look looks on that clip. I can go over here. I can see how my look looks on that clip, right? That's in its simplest form, taking it one step from making something standardized in Rec 709 and giving it some juice. Let me hop ahead, and we are going to skip many steps right now, but I just want to show you kind of a finalized node tree, and then we'll just open up for questions and discussion. Any questions before we jump in? I know that's way too much information just be spouting out right now, but anything I can clarify?
Yeah, Brian, can you just like your dots up top, like your between groups and individual clips, can you just run through those really quick?
Of
So,
course. Yep.
Just like where you start from,
Mhm.
and then go from there. So like
Yes. So the dots are, and these are the same as the dots.
this is your group pre-clip.
Mhm.
You haven't put any look on it.
This is so let me take off everything here really quick. And let me just copy that to everything. So this is, nothing has happened, but you will only get 4 dots at the top once you've added things into a group.
Right.
So this is assuming we already have a group added. Anything that I add into pre-group is going to affect the entire group. Anything that I add into the clip, which is the second dot, will affect only that clip. That's where I'm doing my color correction, because it's only on that clip.
Your pre-clip group is where you're putting everything into your like DaVinci wide.
Yes, so you picked up on that. You see, I didn't do that in this workflow, right? But that goes back to Kyle's question. And what was your name?
Henny.
Henny?
Yeah.
Nice to meet you. I'm Brian. That goes to your guys' questions of different workflows. A lot of people will convert it pre-group and then do all their stuff afterwards. And that is a totally great way to go about it. Because then when you're in clip, you can just copy your adjustments from a red clip to a Sony clip that's color corrected, and it'll match. So does that make sense? Of like, if I transfer everything from a red to a Sony, I'm normalizing it into the same space. Then I go to clip, and let's say I shot a red and a Sony in this classroom, and I need to make the same adjustment to the two. I can take those same corrections and copy in between clips for the most part.
So why didn't you run through
Why I did it on the clip level?
clip at the start of clip as opposed to just
Personal preference. It's one of those things where it makes sense for a lot of people to do it in the pre-clip area, because then it's done and it's over. The reason I do it in the clip area is because it's just less windows for me to have to switch between, and it's really not that bad for me to have to go and look, okay, everything red, I just select everything because I have it on green on the timeline, copy, paste, control, and then let's say I want to change anything else in there. You can ripple changes across a group for an individual node with a hotkey. That's a little bit more of an advanced topic, but that's a way so I can copy grades across something without affecting the color space transform. That's a weird explanation of that. The reason I do it is it's less stuff for me to fuck up, because it's less windows, less areas where I might accidentally put the wrong color space transform if I have 10 different cameras in a project, and then I go back on that and I'm like, dang.
Yeah, so all this is pretty much made possible because you went into Lightbox and grouped all your different cameras. So do you think that's like one of your also very first steps?
Yes.
To be able to have all those groups.
100%. That's what I'll always do when documentary comes in. I'll do that when it's commercial and it's a 30-second clip and it's 40 or 20 different clips in there. Sometimes I won't even open Lightbox. I'll just do it right down over here and just grade it from there. But however you do it, you just want to get things in groups when you're working with long form stuff typically. That way you're just not copying clips across. Yes, sir.
After you went to the Lightbox and highlighted
Mhm.
your Sony in the red, what drop-down menu did you use to isolate it?
Yes. So there's 2 ways of doing that, and both are fine, and I use both. One of them is in the edit page. I've moved all my Sony footage up here. I've identified what my Sony footage is, and then I will, typically click that, change color to orange over here, then go in here, timeline, select everything with clip color orange. There it goes, and then I can just, if it's mixed up in all the stuff, and then just move that up timeline. And then that is one way that I can just go in here and now use hotkeys to turn off my second timeline layer. And now the only thing I see over here, you see that orange going away, is red. That's not answering your question, because that's not what I did. But that's what I typically would use, because it's faster for me to get things on different timelines and then just hotkey. Okay, I don't want to see red footage. Bam. Don't want to see Sony. To get into a group and just see the group stuff on there, you click right up over here where it says clips, the little drop down there, and you're going to see a lot of different options of stuff you can do. It's weird that it's so low down for how often it needs to be used. And then all of your groups will be right down here. And as you add and delete groups, that list will auto-populate. So now I want to see my Sony footage. Bam, I'm back into my Sony footage. I want to see all clips. Bam, all clips. So yeah, of course. So does that answer your question of why I did it on a clip level, but why that might not be the right decision for you? It's just, for me, it's an organizational thing in my head, but a lot of people will do it not there. If
I
that
don't know
checks
if
out.
you have this, sorry, Kyle. I don't know if you have this plan, but like steps 1 through 4 in your process, right?
Oh yeah.
Really quick, just like like step 1, step 2, step 3, and then step 4 being like your final export of the Rex 709.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, great. Do you want me to actually, I can just plug in an actual project that I'm grading right now. You have to ignore the grade because it's very, very not done, but this might be a little bit more relevant than a whole bunch of other clips, and I can kind of just walk you through exactly what we did.
So if you group your stuff in Lightbox,
Mhm.
that drop down, say your group thing.
Mhm.
On your color page, it'll exclude all the other groups. So you're kind of like triple deleting the whole timeline, so to say, and like only seeing those clips in that group, right?
Yes, sir. Exactly. And that's why I'm able to then select, just Command A, select every clip in my timeline, and then Control V, my color space transform to all of those clips.
Yeah, so you don't have to
Exactly. I'm
all the different cameras.
100%. And so that's why for me it's easy to do it on a timeline level because I have stuff grouped before I'm applying my color space transforms. But yeah, let's go. We'll go just A to Z. Here's the format. So this is a boxing documentary that came to me. This was nice because I actually had the raw files given to me. A lot of the time you'll get ProRes in documentary stuff, but my rule of thumb is if it's a red camera, I would love to get the raw files. If it's shot in RE RAW and it's imperative they're going to push the image, get the raw files. But for 99% of stuff, if you get a ProRes 4444 export, give that to someone or get that to somebody, that's going to have enough colored information in it for the colorist to be able to do anything. So that's ProRes 4444, and it's a 12-bit wrapper. So that just means it has a lot of color data in there. So this footage was shot a lot on the red. So the way this came to me was I had a XML that says 4-color. And the guy actually formatted it pretty nice, but this is how it came in. And it wasn't orange, it wasn't blue or anything. So what I did over here was I first of all took off all the resizing on everything. Then I popped over into the color page, and my guess is I probably went into Lightbox here and sorted everything by source timecode, which is now you can see what I mean. Like now all of these are in order. So I can say that, and I can say, and he told me, he was like, hey, I shot this interview in Rec 709 rather than log. So now what I did over here, you can see I grouped that into something called 03 red B-roll. Actually, that's not the red group, but in the other one it is Rec 709 interview, right? And so now I know that's the stuff where I have to do a different transform to get that into DaVinci wide gamut than the log stuff. So do all that. And then what I would do there is, this seems tedious, but it saves you a lot of time on the back end. Take all of my clips that are for this scene, and you can see I made them orange. Go over here, and then timeline, select clips with clip color orange. And I just did this with a bunch of different colors. And then over here, I got everything on different levels in the timeline and then named it over here. So I don't know if a lot of people do go this much in depth. A lot of people would just dive in and do it. And I haven't done this on every project, but I knew this one had a lot of different cameras and interviews that I wanted to really be able to go in here. And then remember that hotkey thing that I was telling you about of like being able to just turn off, all these timelines, bam, 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 bam. And then DaVinci has a glitch where it doesn't update down here. I just turned off all the timelines with a hotkey. So now, rather than having to go up here and click group and go Sione interview and click that and then click out of that, I can just use a hotkey to get all my Sione interviews because I know those are in timeline 1 and 2. And now turn them all back on, bam, bam, have a hotkey to get everything on. So everything over here is, you can see again, on every clip in here, I have nothing on my group pre-clip. Again, that's my personal preference of how I work. The other reason why I like doing it like this is sometimes you'll be doing projects and there's 40 different sources of footage coming in and you don't want to group everything, then if you're not grouping stuff, you're not going to have this group pre-clip as an option. So then it's not as easy to then copy and paste a node from clip area. That's actually probably a better answer of why I do it this way that I forgot about till now. So sometimes just rambling on gets it going. So you can see everything's done under clip, and it's not all showing here. Typically, it's nice to have a bigger screen over here. So let me just close this up. Here is my clip level. So here's where I did all of my color correction beforehand. And now diving in a little bit more, you can also see I have this node, which is called subject. And I'm using that to bring up the background behind my subject. And I'm doing that on the clip level, because if I do that on the group level, that look is going to carry through the whole project, and it's going to look weird on a different portion. So I take that and I copy these clip levels all the way across, and I typically switch back and forth at this point after I've done my main color correction of exposure and white balance between making these power windows and whatnot, because you kind of need to see what they do under the look, right? You don't want to just do that at Rec 709. So a lot of the times I won't touch these ones in here, which are like subject isolators, kind of secondaries of color correction, until I create the look, which is over here. And this looks like a pretty complicated look, but you can see not every node in here is doing something, right? And that goes back to our whole thing of a node structure, a node tree of like, you want to use similar node trees across projects, or find what node trees work for you, so that when you approach a project, you have a way of being like, okay, I use this node to highlight sky. I use this one for grass. If it's not being used in the project, I still have it there because there might be a shot later where I need to do grass. So you got your look over here, bam, bam, bam. You have an exposure node over here. I rarely touch that in the look. I have a white balance node. Contrast, you're definitely dialing in contrast before a lot of other things. A lot of these are done in order. Here's my primaries. That's where some of the look is happening. Let me find maybe a better shot that we can go on. Like, let's just take this one, for example. This one is brought way up, or sorry, warmth way up in post. The director came in, he was like, I want this scene to feel warm. So we pushed it that way on the clip level. But then under the look, basically, even though these are in different groups and you have to copy the look to the different groups, almost every single clip in this piece is getting the same look. There's a couple scenes where it has a different look, but every clip is getting the same sauce afterwards. And that's the pro of doing all the work at the beginning, getting on different timelines, getting things organized. Now I can just create a look and kind of sit back and see how it plays. And do I need to adjust it in this scene? But I'm not having to constantly go back and worry about the technical. So, and then this is all just a node graph that we could get into more, but it's pretty simple stuff happening here. And then I have that dehancer node, which I mentioned over here. So that's giving a little bit of the look. And then I think this project, I also have Film Look Creator from DaVinci. And that's giving that's not even doing really anything, but that's what the sauce and the experimenting comes through.
Cool.
Does that answer kind of the workflow question?
On your clip level, what's your first node on your clip level?
NR, noise reduction, because that's,
Then you do your color space transform in.
yes.
And
So,
so after the color space transform in, is it pretty easy to copy your node structure from the right part of color space transform in?
mhm.
Like where are you copying? I guess where are you starting to copy to move to other clips?
Yes. Yeah. Sorry, say one more time. And actually, I just realized this is the timeline that we're actually editing on, so I'm going to go to an older one. But rephrase the question. I'm not quite sure I understand the.
Okay, so you're transforming on a clip level.
Uh-huh.
You're doing your color space transform.
Uh-huh.
And then you want that same look to apply to most of your other clips in your group.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you starting that? Like, does that make sense?
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So you see this clip node structure that I have built out?
Yeah.
Again, most of the time, like 10 of these aren't being used here. It's because I have a thing that I made back in the day called pre-group trees. And this seems simple, but if I copy and paste that, it's that same node tree. And so what I'm doing is I'll take that node tree, apply it to all the clips in that group, copy and paste it, and then take that color space transform, do that, copy and paste it. And then from there, I'll go in over here, exposure, white balance, normalize over there. I want to make sure I'm answering this question right. And then contrast primaries, sometimes typically not touching that. That's more for like fixing primaries, so it might be named poorly there. And here you can kind of get into the look, but I would consider this is more like shaping light before the look. And then I still sometimes shape light in the look if I need to.
Okay.
But then this is all look over here. So like this exposure node, it's kind of stupid to have. You're not changing exposure in a look typically. That can be done in the primaries over here. But yeah, that's that for the most part. And the reason I have noise reduction before the color space transform in is it's just a practice thing that I do. I've learned it from some other colorists. Some people do it later. But here's what's really cool about this. Since everything in this project is normalized to DaVinci wide gamut, when I go over here and after it's normalized, it change exposure on this node. If I do it in HDR and just drop it down one stop, then I can take that same stop, even though that was on a red, I could drop that same stop down on a Sony clip and it'll have the same exposure adjustment. Versus if I did that before the color space transform, it'll be radically different because of the logarithmic curves. Okay, we're at 2 minutes from 3:30. I know I didn't get into the looks, and there's a lot of stuff we didn't touch on. Everything from LUTs, power grade, saving stuff. This was a lot to pack in, but I want to make sure I can hang out a little bit after too. But any other questions or?
I just have a quick question. I learned color from a guy who learned on for regeneration. He always, his mantra was just trust your scopes. Like the scopes don't lie. So do you operate looking at scopes a lot, or do you just go by your eye? Or
Yes, we didn't even touch on that topic. Scopes all the time for everything and anything. And there's even more iterations of stuff I'll use in addition to scopes nowadays. Here's something which is just this is the trial version in here, but I turn that on and I can say, oh, my skin is pretty good. It's not too magenta, not too green. And that way I can look at this on any monitor and say, okay, this is under the hood. This isn't what my screen's displaying. Same thing with the scopes. Everything is scopes all the time. Typically when I'm grading, I'll have my main image in front of me. And then if you guys even have an iPad or something, you can CarPlay that or whatever it's called, AirPlay to it, and just put your scopes down there. And that's just an easy way to always look and make sure you're not clipping above or below. So yeah.
keep that window open all the time.
All the time. Scopes are always partying. And what I'll even do to go a step further is I have an old camera monitor that I don't use anymore that can display false color. And I just have that set up on my desk right over here. And I just have a clean feed going into that too. So that anytime I'm looking at something, I always have a check of like, does this match that interview clip? Are they laying in the same IRE value on their foreheads, right? So it's a very technical science when you get down to it. But I want to also bring it back. I'm a very technical colorist. I'm a very technical guy the way I approach it, as well as the artist side. There's a lot of really, really talented people out there who can create really good looks without knowing crap about all that stuff. Just as there's really good cinematographers who don't know how to work a camera, yet shoot some of the coolest stuff ever. So you can kind of dive in as deep as you want it. But my mantra is the more that I know what I can do technically, the less time we have to waste in a studio if someone's coming in for a color session. So yeah, scopes. Yes, sir.
So let's say you've got like a well-exposed long shot. Maybe you've got like a couple of things like some masking you have to do on the person's face or whatever. How long would you say you generally take on one?
Yes. So there's a talented colorist in Salt Lake, Teddy Muse, who, when I was talking about investing into color equipment, he stressed the importance of a control panel. And I was like, man, I'm good with my mouse. I'm good with my hands and everything. He's like, as soon as you start doing this for work, every time you spend time on a clip, that's money, basically. And so the faster you can go through fast, the more efficient you're being, the better value you can provide to clients and customers, and also the more respectful you're being to yourself of your time. So I will rush through stuff on the first pass. I will put on that Rec 709 and I'll have my finger on the next node and I'll have everything set up so that all I got to do is exposure up and down, white balance left and right. And so bam, 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 bam. And then my goal is like, if someone comes to me and say, hey, we have $2,000 for this color project. Okay, hey, I'm going to give you, 20 hours on this. I would ideally want to spend 15 of those hours working on the look so that we can dial this into the nines. But if you give me a bunch of footage that's shot all over, it looks like crap, I'm gonna have to spend 10 hours color correcting it. Or if you give me a bunch of footage that's good, but I don't know what I'm doing, I'm gonna spend 10 hours color correcting it, and then you wanna get 10 hours of the juice. And so I'm a big proponent of blow by that, understand the correction, so that you can really, really understand it. So to answer your question, a couple seconds for the most part, as far as like correcting stuff. And then if something's really tough to crack, I'll look at like, okay, is it noise reduction that needs, or do I just need a break from it? And then I'll move on, take a break from it, but I'll flag that clip so I come back to it. But ideally, you want to get it done in a couple hours so that you can move on to really giving the project love. Yeah. Sick. Yeah. That's a lot of stuff. There scopes, we didn't touch on scopes. We didn't touch too much on power grades and saving looks for the future. That's a huge thing. You can buy them online from a lot of places. I will just save random power grades that I like from projects that I've done right over here. And that way, if, again, with time being money, if a project comes in and you just need to give it a look, I know, okay, hey, this project could look good with this power grade on it. Let's just toss that on and then adjust it a little bit. So really saving parts in your step or in your process so that you can just jump back to them and you don't have to start all over. I think when I first approached color grading, it was a thing of like, I wanted to sit down and spend time and experiment and do all these fun things. And as soon as you get into the business of it, you kind of lose a little bit of that, of like, you can't do that with every project. Otherwise, you're never going to get anything done. So I would look at yourself and what you want to get out of your color grading of, if you're going to do it yourself, spend that time, dream up, learn things, look at resources, take it. But if you want to go be a colorist and make a business, I would highly recommend early on understanding how to work fast and efficiently is way more important than it's stressed when you watch a YouTube tutorial or a master class. They're just talking about the dreaming stuff, but having a good proper workflow is paramount for doing your own projects for sure. And if you can understand both, you're in a good spot. Yes, sir.
What's that Aki that you did for the different layers of timeline? Name.
Oh, yeah. Like the one to turn them on and off? I think that one might be a default one, but I have it set as Command-Shift-1. I think that's a default one in there. So
What's it called in there?
it's called Application Enable Disable V1. And then Command-Shift-5 is Enable Disable V5. And then Command-Shift-9 is the only one that's different. That does all of the layers. So if I want to get everything back on really quick, 8, 7, 6, however you count, and then 9. Yes, sir. Yeah. Rock on, you guys. I'll hang out here for a second if you guys have any questions, but thank you so much for coming. And did everyone get that QR code?
Yeah.
Sick.
Feel like a J, Gen IQ.
Hopefully you didn't get a headache from me talking at light speed. I was trying to cram hours in.
It was really just a film.
Yeah.